Book of Heaven, Volume 7, Part 6. November 14th, 1906. The cross expands the boundaries of the kingdom of heaven. Oh, how I struggled and suffered because of his privation. Then after a long time, he made himself seen just in passing, and told me, "My daughter, if perfect resignation is the certain and sure sign of predestination, the cross expands the boundaries of the kingdom of heaven." And he disappeared like a flash. November 16th, 1906. Difference between the offenses of the religious and those of the secular. As I was in my usual state, I saw the many offenses committed by priests and by religious people, and the great sorrow that blessed Jesus felt because of them. Almost surprised, I said, "My sweet life, it is true that religious people offend you, but it seems to me that the secular offend you more. Yet you show greater sorrow for the first than for the second. It seems you are all eyes to look at all that the first are doing, and you seem not to look at what the second do." And he, "Ah, my daughter, you cannot comprehend the difference that exists between the offenses of the religious and those of the secular. This is why you are surprised. The religious have declared that they belong to me, love me, and serve me, and I have entrusted the treasures of my grace to them, and the treasures of the sacraments to others, who are the priests. Now, while pretending on the outside that they belong to me, in their interior, if they need, they are far away from me. They show that they love me and serve me, but they offend me, and they use holy things to serve their own passions. This is why I am all eyes, so as not to let them spoil my gifts and my graces. But in spite of my cares, they reach the point of wreaking havoc with those very things with which on the outside they seem to be glorifying me. This offense is so grave that if you could comprehend it, you would die of heartbreak. On the other hand, the secular declare that they do not belong to me, that they do not know me, and that they do not want to serve me. And because of this, first of all, they are free of the spirit of hypocrisy. That is the thing that displeases me the most. Therefore, since they have declared themselves, I have not been able to entrust my gifts to them. Even though grace excites them, it fights them. It has not given itself, because they do not want it. It happens as to a king, who, having waged battle to free the peoples from the slavery in which they are kept by other kings, managed, by force of blood, to free some of those peoples. Then he placed them under his dominion, providing everything for them, and if necessary letting them live in his own residence. Now, who would displease him more if they offended him? The peoples that have remained far away from him, and that he yet wanted to free, or the ones that live with him? November 18th, 1906. The works without interior spirit and upright intention bloat the soul. As I was in my usual state, I saw only a shadow of blessed Jesus, and he told me only, "My daughter, if a food could be separated from its substance, and someone ate it, it would be of no use, or rather it would serve to bloat his stomach. Such are the works without interior spirit, and without upright intention. Being emptied of divine substance, they are of no use, and serve only to bloat the person. Therefore he receives more harm than good. November 20th, 1906. Obedience communicates divine strength to the soul. My poor state continues, full of bitterness, because of the almost continuous privations that I suffer, but also of peace. I saw him just flashing by, telling me, "My daughter Obedience is an unshakable wall, and such it renders the soul." Not only this, but in order to be unshakable, it is necessary for one to be strong and robust, and Obedience communicates divine strength in such a way that, in the face of the divine strength that the soul possesses, all things are weak. So much so that while Obedience can move anything, nothing can move her. And he vanished away. November 28th, 1906. The good of operating together with Jesus. Continuing in my poor state, I just barely saw Blessed Jesus, who seemed to transform all of himself into me, in such a way that if I breathed, I could feel his breathing in mine. If I moved one arm, I could feel him move his arm within mine, and so with all the rest. While he was doing this, he told me, "My beloved daughter, see in what a close union I am with you. This is how I want you to be, completely united and clasped to me. And do not think that you must do this only when you suffer or pray, but rather always, always. If you move, if you breathe, if you work, if you eat, if you sleep, everything as if you were doing it in my humanity, and as if your working came from me, in such a way that you should be nothing but the cortex. And once the cortex of your work is broken, one should find the fruit of the divine work. And this you must do for the good of the whole of humanity, in such a way that my humanity must be present, as though alive in the midst of people. In fact, as you do everything, even the most indifferent actions, with this intention of receiving life from me, your action acquires the merit of my humanity, because since I was man and God, in my breathing, I contained the breathing of all. The movements, the actions, the thoughts. I contained everything within myself. Therefore I sanctified them. I divinized them. I repaired them. So by doing everything in the act of receiving all of your working from me, you too shall come to embrace and contain all creatures within you, and your working shall diffuse for the good of all. Therefore, even if the others shall give me nothing, I shall take everything from you. It seems I am speaking a lot of nonsense. These are intimate things, and I am unable to say them well. I would like to write them as I have them in my mind, but I cannot. It seems that I take one drop of light, and 100 more escape me. It would have been better had I kept silent. But after all, may everything be for the glory of God. December 3rd, 1906. The sweetness and the peace of the soul. Since blessed Jesus was not coming, I felt such bitterness. Not only this, but a sort of hitch within my interior, such as to make me almost restless. Oh God, what pain! All other pains compared to this are nothing but shadows, or rather refreshment. Your privation alone can be given the name of pain. Now, while I was fidgeting, he came out in passing from within my interior, and he said to me, "What is the matter with you? Calm yourself, calm yourself. Here I am, not only with you, but in you. And then I do not want this restless heart. Everything in you must be sweetness and peace, in such a way that it may be said of you that which is said about me, that nothing but milk and honey flows within me, symbolizing sweetness with honey and peace with milk. I am so filled and soaked with them that they pour out from my eyes, from my mouth, and from all of my works. And if you are not likewise, I feel dishonored by you, because while he who is all peace and sweetness dwells within you, you do not honor me by showing even the slightest shadow of a resentful and restless heart. I love this sweetness and peace so much that even if it were about something great concerning my honor and glory, I do not want, I never approve, resentful, violent, fiery manners, but rather sweet and peaceful manners. In fact, sweetness alone is that which binds hearts like a chain, in such a way that they cannot unbind themselves. It is like pitch that sticks to them, and they cannot free themselves, and are forced to say, "In this soul there is the finger of God, for we cannot act otherwise." And then, if I do not like a resentful manner, not even creatures shall like it. If one speaks about or deals with things, even of God, with manners that are not sweet and peaceful, it is a sign that he does not have his passions in order. And one who does not keep himself in order cannot order others. Therefore be careful with anything that is not sweetness and peace, if you do not want to dishonor me. December 6, 1906. Jesus hides to see what the soul does. Continuing in my state of almost total privation, at the most he comes like a flash or a shadow. I was saying in my interior, "Life of my life, how is it that you are not coming? Oh, how cruel you have become with me! How hard your heart has become, as you reach the point of not listening to me. Where are your promises? Where your love, since you leave me abandoned in the abyss of miseries? Yet you promised me that you would never leave me. You told me that you love me. And now? And now? You yourself told me that it is from one's constancy that it can be known whether one really loves you. And if there is no constancy, one cannot rely on this love. So how is it that you want it from me, who does not form your life? And then you, who are my life, deny it to me? But who can say all of my nonsense? I would be too long. In the meantime, he moved in my interior, raising his arm in the act of sustaining me, and he told me, "I am within you, and I hide more in you to see what you do. I have failed in nothing, neither in promises, nor in love, nor in constancy. If you, imperfect, do it, I do it in the fullness of perfection toward you." And he disappeared. December 15th, 1906. How the Divine Will Contains All Goods. Continuing in my usual state, I was feeling embittered more than ever because of his privation. In one moment I felt as though absorbed in the will of God, and I felt all my interior appeased, in such a way as to no longer feel myself, but only the divine will in everything, even in his very privation. I myself said to myself, "What strength! What enchantment! What magnet this divine will contains, such as to make me forget about myself, and make the divine volition flow in everything." At that moment, he moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, since the divine will is the only nourishing food that contains all flavors and tastes together that are suitable for the soul finds her favorite food and becomes appeased. Her desire finds its food, and it only thinks of pasturing itself, slowly, and it forms without desiring anything else. Her inclination has nothing else toward which to tend, because it has found the food that satisfies it. Her will has nothing else to will, because the soul has left her own will that formed her torment, and has found the divine will that forms her happiness. She has left poverty and has found wealth, not human, but divine. In sum, all of the interior of the soul finds its food. That is, its crafting, with which it remains so occupied and absorbed as to be unable to move any farther. In fact, while finding all contentments in this food and crafting, the soul finds so much to do and learn, and ever new things to enjoy, that from a minor science she learns major sciences, and there is always something else to learn. She passes from small things to great things. From one taste, she moves to other tastes, and there is always something new to taste in this environment of the divine will. January 3rd, 1907. True trust reproduces divine life in the soul. Continuing in my usual state, I saw Blessed Jesus for just a little, and he told me, "My daughter, if one fears much, it is a sign that she relies much on herself, because in noticing nothing but weaknesses and miseries within herself, she naturally and justly fears. On the other hand, if one fears nothing, it is a sign that she relies on God, because by relying on God, her miseries and weaknesses are dissolved in God, and as she feels invested by the divine being, it is no longer she who operates, but God within her. So what can she fear? Therefore, true trust reproduces divine life in the soul." January 5th, 1907. True sanctity consists of receiving anything that may happen to us as a specialty of divine love. Having read about a soul who had scruples about everything, and who feared that everything might be sin, I was thinking to myself, and I, how lax I am. I too would like to think that everything may be sin, so as to be more attentive, not to offend the Lord. Then when blessed Jesus came, he told me, "My daughter, this is nonsense, and the soul remains stuck on the path of sanctity, while true and solid sanctity consists of receiving anything that may happen to her, or that she may be doing, be it even the most indifferent thing, as a specialty of divine love, just as it would be if she found a food enjoyable or disgusting. A specialty of love in the enjoyment, thinking that it is Jesus that produces that enjoyment in the food, and that he loves her to the point of giving her pleasure even in material things. A specialty of love in the disgust, thinking that he loves her so much as to produce that disgust for her, in order to make her similar to himself in mortification, giving her himself a little coin that she can offer to him. A specialty of divine love, if she is humiliated, if she is exalted, if she is healthy, if she is infirm, if she is poor or rich. A specialty of love, her breathing, her sight, her speech, everything, everything. And just as she must receive everything, everything as a specialty of divine love, she must give everything back to God as a special love of hers. So she must receive the wave of the love of God, and must give to God the wave of her love. Oh, what a sanctifying bath is this wave of love! It purifies her, it sanctifies her, it makes her advance without her realizing it. It is a life more of heaven than of earth. This is what I want from you. Sin and the thought of sin must not exist in you. January 10th, 1907. The evil of one's own taste. As I was in my usual state, blessed Jesus came for just a little, and he told me, "My daughter, the attachment of creatures to their own tastes is such that I am forced to contain my gifts within myself. In fact, instead of becoming attached to the donor, they become attached to my gifts, idolatrizing my gifts to the offense of the donor. So if they find their own taste, they act, or rather they do not. They just satisfy their taste. If there is no taste, they do nothing. So one's own taste forms a second life in the creatures. But miserable ones, they do not know that where one's own taste is present, the divine taste can hardly be, even in the very holy things. So in receiving my gifts, graces, and favors, she must not appropriate them as her own things, making of them a taste for herself, but must keep them as divine tastes, using them in order to love the Lord more, and being ready to sacrifice them to that very love." January 13th, 1907. Jesus wanted to suffer in his humanity in order to redo the human nature. Continuing in my usual state, I saw my blessed Jesus flashing by, and he told me, "My daughter, how much I love souls. Listen, the human nature was corrupted, humiliated, without hope of glory and of resurgence. And I wanted to suffer all humiliations in my humanity. In a special way, I wanted to be stripped, scourged, and let my flesh fall off in shreds under the scourges, almost undoing my humanity, in order to redo the humanity of creatures, and to make it rise again full of life, of honor, and of glory to eternal life. What more could I do that I have not done? January 20th, 1907. The greatest sanctity is to live in the divine will. Having read the lives of two female saints, one who aspired so much to suffering, and the other who aspired so much to be little, I was thinking in my interior about which one of the two it would be better to imitate, and unable to make up my mind, I felt as though hampered. So in order to be free and to think only about loving him, I said to myself, I want to aspire to nothing but to love him and to fulfill his holy will perfectly. At that moment, the Lord told me in my interior, and it is here that I want you, in my will. Until the grain of wheat is buried in the earth and dies completely, it cannot rise again to new life and multiply itself, giving life to other grains. In the same way, until the soul is buried in my will, to the point of dying completely, by dissolving all of her will within mine, she cannot rise again to new divine life through the rising of all the virtues of Christ that contain true sanctity. Therefore let my will be the seal that seals your interior and exterior. And once my will has risen completely within you, you shall find true love. And this is the greatest of all the other sanctities to which one can aspire. January 21st, 1907. The one who always loves Jesus cannot displease him. Finding myself in my usual state, I was saying in my interior, Lord, let it be that I may be all yours, and that I may be always, always with you, and that I may never separate from you. However, while I am with you, do not permit that I may be a goad that embitters you, that I may bother you, that I may displease you, but that I may be a goad that is present in you to sustain you when you are tired or oppressed, that consoles you when you are bothered by the other creatures. While I was saying this, blessed Jesus told me, My daughter, the one who is in the continuous attitude of loving me, is always with me, and can never be a goad that gives me bother, but a goad that sustains me, that relieves me, that soothes me. In fact, true love has this as its own. It renders the beloved content. Besides, the one who always loves me can never displease me, because love absorbs the whole person. At the most, there might be little things, and the soul herself does not even realize that she may displease me, but love itself takes on the commitment to purify her, so that I may always find my delights in her. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 7, Part 6. Fiat.